Good evening or good afternoon, depending on where you are in Australia. I'm Dante St James, and we're going to look at creating a story brand, which is a whole framework that's designed around getting a better messaging for your business or for your brand. There's massive companies that have done this process, but more than that, lots of little businesses have done this as well. I've gone through the process with my businesses, and I'm going to show you some examples along the way of what that is. Now, this is an introductory story brand session. It's not going to go into the depths of it, although there's a lot to take in, but it's more of an idea for you to decide whether the story brand framework is something you want to follow for developing your brand message, or whether you want to sort of look a bit deeper into what brand messaging is and how to come about what that brand message may be. I'm coming to you live from Townsville today, so if you're watching on Zoom, you can certainly put in those questions as you're going along. We've got a few people logging in right about now. Just had about an extra few people just dropped in. Hello. But if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, well, then you can always pop a message down the comments below, whether you're watching through Business Station or my own YouTube channel, and I'll be able to answer those as we get to them. So just make sure you put those in. And while you're there, drop in a subscribe too. It'd be amazing to be able to sort of follow the journey with you and go deeper in the whole marketing and small business journey alongside you. So first of all, my video is having some issues there. I'm using hotel Wi-Fi, so we'll see how we go with this one. Let's get that screen shared and get the whole thing underway. I want to do this quick quote from Benjamin Disraeli. He's one of the founding fathers, I guess, of the Conservative Party in the UK. He says, "I talk to people about themselves and they will listen for hours." He was actually called Silent Ben for a while because he was pretty much made himself popular in the UK by listening to what other people said their issues were, rather than trying to yell down policies and procedures to them. So he certainly made his mark in the world, and not only the father of the Conservative Party, but the first Jewish Minister of the UK as well, which at the time in the 1800s was absolutely unheard of. This is brought to you by Business Station and the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program. It's a program of the Australian government that's conducted by Business Station in Western Australia, partnered with Regional Development Australia, Brisbane in Queensland, and Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory. You can watch this on YouTube later on, either through my own channel or the Business Station channel as well. This is all based upon Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand book. Now, he's got a series of books. There's Building a Story Brand. There's another one called Marketing Made Simple, which is all about approaching and applying all these story brand principles to things like websites and your marketing. And then there's another one called Business Made Simple, which is about the story brand base of business. A great series of books. You can listen to them on Audible, or you can pick them up from Amazon or wherever. They're quite widely available in stores as well, I believe. What we're going to cover today is a little bit of a look behind what your customer wants, what their problem is, being their guide, which is ultimately who you're going to be, what success looks like for your customer, and what is the failure that they're trying to avoid, and the transformation that you're going to deliver to them. Now, this does have a notes that go along with this, and you can pick those up at mystorybrand.com. So whilst we're going through these next slides, it'll give you an opportunity to go to mystorybrand.com, sign in there, and you'll be able to see the follow along sections that I'll prompt you to when you fill in those details. And if you don't get to it, that's okay. You've always got the chance of doing this as an ASBAS Digital Solutions one-to-one session at some time after this particular presentation. Bit about me. I've educated from the University of Western Sydney, University of New South Wales, done a bit through the Chartered Institute of Marketing and TAFE New South Wales as well. I did a lot of my stuff in New South Wales because I grew up there, but I haven't lived there for a very long time. I just continue to do a lot of stuff through TAFE New South Wales because they've got a really easy to use online portal, and I'm kind of an online person. Facebook is where I spend a lot of my time working through their Blueprint Certified Lead Trainer program. So it's doing training sessions on Facebook family of apps for small businesses and organizations around Australia and the world, with Google's Digital Springboard program and a few government programs as well, including this one, the ASBAS Digital Solutions, Be Connected, which is helping older Australians to get online and interact in the digital economy, and the New Business Assistance with Nice program, which I handle in Darwin and Alice Springs. Now, first of all, I'm going to show you an example of, and this is not blowing my trumpet, but it's some of the work that gets done as part of the story brand movement when it comes to things like websites. It comes across to give you some really, really solid messaging that so makes sense when it comes to who you are, who you serve, what you're doing, what's the problem you solve. All those questions get answered in one simple statement on your website. And mine is, I transform hesitant business owners into confident, capable marketers. That's probably any business owner, really. They can relate to that because they're probably hesitant when it comes to all things digital. But I then transform them into this. So we know who it's for, we know what the outcome is, and we know where that person's starting from, what their problem is. And then I've got 3 little statements there. Get a handle on what your customers really want. Stop wasting time and money on marketing programs, and find the support and direction you've been looking for. So that's the sort of things I do as part of one of my businesses. Another example can be this particular divorce attorneys in America. They get through your divorce with a team that knows and cares. Our experienced attorneys guide you through the process. Now, they got their 3 little statements there too. Get answers, create a plan, achieve stability. So it's very, very simple to be able to see what these particular businesses are doing. This one is a podcast or a guide to what they call the Friday habit. Boost your business weekly. Pretty simple. It's all about business owners wanting to be boosted. Get actionable ideas, make weekly improvements, watch your business grow. Simple, directional places to go from a start of landing to the site to the next step. And then other examples come along, like this wedding catering business, wedding catering with you in mind. This is your day. We'll make sure the food is perfect. You start to see some message, sort of some consistencies in some of these ideas. Strong statement, little mini statement, call to action, 3 different little points that sort of tell you what you're all about. These things make it so easy for people to understand how to engage with you and what exactly it is you've solved for them. So how do we get there? Where do we start this journey from? Well, it all happens by doing a guided BrandScript session at mystorybrand.com. But this is kind of what we're doing today. This is a little bit of that. So if you follow along this with mystorybrand.com as we go through these slides, it's a very similar process as well. Then we uncover what your brand message may be from what your responses to that particular survey were. So as you're going along taking your notes, you submit those through to someone like myself or another StoryBrand expert, and then they can then unwrap all that to number 3, get that message that you can apply to your marketing, your website, and all your different sales materials. And all this can be carried out through myself through an ASBAS Digital Solutions subsidized session as well to get you started. And if you haven't done one of those one-to-ones before, just a secret, your first one's free. So that's going to save you a little bit of money. And after that, $44 for the second, and then $66 for any after that, up to 24 hours of total contact time with this particular program. So let's continue and go to the movies. Now, I think, what are we going to the movies for? We're talking about branding. We're talking about marketing. We're talking about all these. Why are we going to the movies? Well, first of all, I want to take you to a story called Eat, Pray, Love. Now, for those of you who've seen it, you'll know exactly all about this. Julia Roberts plays Liz, who's a woman who is living a bit of a life that she doesn't really like living. She has a bit of a problem. She's in a loveless marriage, feels no passion for life, but has been successful and done great in her career, but doesn't seem to it just doesn't make sense to her. Life is just dull. So she decides to throw out the husband, throw out the life, and start going out with a new guy who's this edgy guy who's in the theater, and she thinks that she's going to find a happiness there, but she doesn't find that happiness. So she decides to go off around the world. She's going to eat, pray, and love. She's going to eat herself silly in Rome. She's going to pray and go to a yoga ashram and a meditation ashram in India, and end the year in Bali, where she's hoping to find her own love again. So she goes off on her journey. In Italy, Rome, she finds a guide who's a Swedish tourist, who's a Swedish expat who's living in Rome, who gives her a plan and a call to action on how to get more of the passion out of life if she's got none. And one of those things was, to stop worrying about what you're eating. Come on, if you eat that pastry, if you eat that pasta and you go up a size, just get a bigger pair of jeans. It's not going to kill you. Then she goes off to India after that, where she finds another guide who gives her a plan to get her out of her own head. She's so caught up in her own thoughts and feelings and emotions that she needs to find that inner peace. And he calls her groceries, because she always seems to be walking around with a whole bunch of groceries of life with her. Once he finally tells her and helps her understand that the universe can't do anything with her until she empties herself out, then she gets guided onto the next thing, which is when she goes and meets Ketut in Bali, not the Rhonda and Ketut. This is a different Ketut. He's a chief in a village in Bali. And he gives her a plan and a call to action, which is basically to just love, just live, just do it. And she actually finds some success and avoids the failure. She finds love, and we assume she lives happily ever after. She's transformed from being the unhappy, empty shell of a woman to someone who's far more engaged with her own life and far more intentional in what her purposes are. If that doesn't make much sense to you, maybe we take a trip to a galaxy far, far away, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Luke Skywalker is on the plains of Tatooine. He has a problem. He feels like he's got so much more to offer life and the universe than just being a moisture farmer in a backwater planet in the middle of a galaxy in chaos. There's an evil empire out there, and they one day come looking for a couple of robots that have gone missing. They come across his moisture farm while he's out doing some shopping, and he comes home and his aunt and uncle who adopted him from a baby have been killed, and it's just a nasty thing. He gets angry. He needs to do something. He feels a sense of destiny. So what does he do? He finds a guy called Ben Kenobi, and Ben Kenobi tells him some truths about where he came from, who gave him an actual plan to move forward with his life. And that plan was to go off and, be like your father, who was a great Jedi warrior. Here's his laser sword. Here's his lightsaber that gives you the power to be able to go and do great things. You thought you had a great purpose in life. Here you go, you do. You just need someone to channel that through. And through that, he called him into action and said, first of all, what we need to do, we need to save this princess that's been caught in this jail that's floating in space. So he goes off and does that. And as part of that whole process, goes from being the kid in the backwater of not going anywhere in life to being a success. He is transformed from that backwater kid to a galactic hero. Now, this is very loosely what Joseph Campbell calls the hero's journey. A really scaled down version of that is that a character has a problem. They meet a guide who gives them a plan and calls them to action that leads them to success and helps them to avoid failure so that they are transformed in some way. Now, I'm going to take all the characters and movie out of this, and instead of that, we're going to look at this as a customer who has a problem. And they meet you, their guide, who gives them a solution and all the reasons to use it, the action that they need to take. And that leads them to solving this problem that they had and avoiding the results of failing to solve that problem, so that they at the end are transformed from having the problem being confused to having that solved. So if my brand script is something like, I take I transform confused and hesitant small business owners and transform them into capable, confident marketers. That goes through that process. I take someone who's confused and hesitant. They meet me, the guide, who gives them a solution and all the reasons to use it that solves the problem, and they are transformed from confused and hesitant to capable and confident. So that's how I worked it into one of my particular brand scripts. So to get to that point, though, you need to break down that journey to each step. So if you're following along at mystorybrand.com, which is where the questions are prompted, you can actually follow this through and I'll let you know where we are at each stage of that particular layout. If not, you can do this in your own time and just sit back and enjoy this ride as we go through the process of developing what your brand script may be. So first of all, we start off with a character. Remember, we're following that journey of a customer or that movie character. So a character. Now, the first thing we need to understand about the person that we're talking about, the hero, isn't you, even though you're kind of a hero in your own life, I guess, but you're not the hero of this story. Your customer is. They are the hero. So let's look at it from their perspective. Now, when they come across a resort website and they see a photo like this and then the National Award winner for service in 2019, they're not really getting much of an idea of what that resort's like. They may have some beautiful photos of buildings and pools and all that, and emptiness and space and all this. But the problem is, though, that there's no one in there. And the message isn't about them. It's about the hotel. That's really great that you were the National Award winner for service in 2019, but that means absolutely zero to me. Instead, though, if I go to a hotel website that shows people who are, well, I can't say I'm just like them because I've got probably about 30 kilos on him, but let's just say that they're people that I can relate to, actually enjoying the facilities of this particular resort, not a big, open, empty, windswept foyer with nobody in that foyer. Like the National Award winner for service, doesn't look like there's a lot of service going on there. But in the other photo, you're seeing people actually enjoying and immersed in what you can expect from that resort. It's a very high-end resort by the looks of it. And the statement that come across on the website, instead of National Award winner for service in 2019, their statement is, find the luxury and rest you've been looking for. Straight away, that's about me, not about them. That's going to definitely say to me that I'm looking for luxury. I'm looking for rest, if that's what I'm looking for. And I want to be able to see what it's like to be in that environment, not in some big open windswept foyer. So some examples of how this may go wrong in some other statements could be, for instance, if you're a lawn mowing company or landscaping, when you say something like, we're 100% local, over 20 years of experience, I, as a customer, say, I don't care. What I say to the customer when you have this, though, for a lawn that'll make your neighbors jealous, yeah, I do care about that, because let's face it, half the reason why we want to do our lawns is so that our neighbors can look at us and think that we're doing better than what we actually are. So if you want to really get to the crux of what your problem is that you're trying to solve for a customer, then start from where they're coming from, rather than trying to say, oh, well, I'm 100% local with over 20 years of experience. When it comes to mowing lawns, nobody cares. Then if it's something like a spa salon experience, or like a day spa, the South Side's favorite L'Oreal salon. Brands, I don't know, is that important to anybody? But the perfect space to relax with your best friend, with photos that actually show you relaxing with your best friend, that's going to drag you in, because that's what you're essentially looking for. People like to do these kind of experiences with their best friends. So unpacking that as this particular business, so these are actually a real business. I just changed the location of where they are and the photos. A real business had their brand script done when they decided that nobody really cared about the L'Oreal stuff. Nobody really cared about that it was the South Side's favorite, because no one can prove that. But what they could say is, this is the perfect space to relax with your best friend. And that really spoke to their customers, and their website generated so many more, like you're talking nearly 40% more inquiries on that website, because finally the website was talking to the customer. An example from fruit and veg boxes, coming from an organic supplier. Fruit and veg boxes with a wide range of fresh fruit and vegetables. Well, that's great. I can pick up fresh fruit and veggies from Coles and Woolies. But saying what the actual benefit is to the customer, which is no crowded shopping centers, just perfect fresh food delivered to you. That's all about me as a customer. That's not about, what about my product? It's saying what the customer actually benefits from taking advantage of this particular service. And finally, from someone who's doing some counseling, unlocking your hidden potential for a life of freedom and success is just corporatese. It's just rubbish words. But if you're saying better relationships, better businesses, a better life in every way, you're speaking to the core of the problem of the person who's coming to you with those problems, rather than just trying to make these grandiose statements about unlocking your hidden potential for a life of freedom and success. People aren't necessarily looking for success. They're looking for something just better than where they are right now. They may not have defined it as the word success. What they've done is gone, there's something wrong with me. I want a better relationship. I want a better business. I want a better life. So you're speaking to that directly. So if you're following along at mystorybrand.com, this will be your first character statement. So in the character, saying, what do they want? So what you need to write down in here, and you've got some time to do that as we move on to the next part. What do your customers want as it relates to your product or service? So think about that as not that they want, if you're selling apples, they don't want apples. What they want is the health benefits that come from eating fresh fruit. Or they want to feel more energetic so they can get on with their day. That's what we're looking for. What's the hidden motivator behind why they want your product or service? Think about the people who you have sold things to. Think about your current customers, and think about the problems that they came along with. If you don't know any of those things, then you're probably not solving their problems. So have a think about it. The people you've talked to, what are the problems that they come into your business with that they need solved? It may not be they don't have a computer and they want to buy a computer. It may not be they don't have any energy and they want to feel energy. Think deeper than that. Think about why they want that energy. Think about why they need that computer, or whatever it is that you're selling. Have a go at that and we'll move on. The second stage is the customer has a problem. Now, this second principle is that we as businesses tend to sell solutions to the external problems that people have, but customers actually buy solutions to their internal problems. Now, I've got a caveat here. If it's a business buying a very specific thing, so I was talking yesterday to a business in Cairns that sells marine towing services. Now, there's only one or two companies in North Queensland that actually do that. So they don't have a lot of competition. So they're not selling any sort of emotional connection to what they're doing. It's quite simply, they get called by insurance companies to go and pick up stranded yachts in the middle of the Barrier Reef. Pretty simple, right? Brand story and brand script does work for them, but it's a very different approach. What we're looking here is mostly if you sell to other people, not necessarily just selling to other businesses. So let's dig a bit deeper into this. Every story, no matter what it is, needs a villain. Every story has external problems that are happening. Every story has internal problems that the particular person's trying to deal with. And there are also philosophical problems that we need to unwind. So to break that down and what that actually means, and this is where most people become a little bit stuck in, is what the villain is. What's the difference between a villain and an external problem? And then what's an internal problem? So think of it this way. The villain is the big problem that your customers have to overcome. So an example could be of the villain is that, well, actually, I've got a few examples coming up on the next screen, so I won't give it away just yet. But a villain initiates an external problem. They're the cause of some external problem out there that's stopping me from being happy, or stopping me from being successful, or stopping me from being better than what I am right now. And that causes me to experience an internal frustration inside myself that is quite simply philosophically wrong. It's unfair that I should have to go through that. So if that's seeming a little bit out there and you want to get a bit more defined, let's look at the problem with getting fruit and vegetables to remote areas. The villain is that fresh fruit is expensive in remote areas. The external problem is the cost of freight is making fresh produce expensive to get to the remote location. So the villain is that the fresh fruit is expensive. The external problem is that the cost of freight makes that fresh produce expensive to get there. The internal problem is that it's making the customer feel powerless and at risk of poor health. And this is philosophically wrong because all Australians deserve access to affordable fresh food, right? Let's look at another example. The beauty industry, cosmetics. The villain is that it's difficult to find darker shades of foundation for darker skin because makeup companies cater more towards lighter skin tones. Now, the internal problem there is the customer feels like they're not normal because their skin tone is not catered for. And this is philosophically wrong because women come in all kinds of skin types and tones. So you're starting to get an idea of what this whole villain and external problem and internal problem is. The villain causes it. The external problem just is there. It just happens. But that external problem is making someone feel terrible. And it's just wrong. You need to understand that it's actually just wrong that they should have to feel terrible because of what this villain's doing. Let's think about it in terms of special needs schooling. It's difficult to find schooling for children with special needs. The external problem is that society tends to be geared towards those without special needs. The internal problem, the feeling inside for the parent, is that they feel alone and unable to care for their child. And this is philosophically wrong because education should be available for all children regardless of their needs. Now, I'm not putting across opinions here. This is just putting down in a systematic way what it is that your clients are up against. What is the external problem they're unable to overcome? How's that making them feel? And you understanding that it's actually philosophically wrong that they should have to go through that there should be a solution to that problem. Hopefully, you as the guide are that solution. So now we move on to the second part of the StoryBrand or the mystorybrand.com framework if you've already signed up for there. And understanding, is there a root cause of your customers' problems? Can you personify this root cause as a villain? So you think, okay, Darth Vader is a villain. We might say that the villain is COVID-19. We might say that the villain is the extremely bad high cost of transporting goods and services around Australia. The villain could be Scott Morrison, whatever your villain is. Could be Anthony Albanese for all that we care. Anything could be the villain, right? Then understand what the external problem is that your customers deal with. So what is the thing that they are having to deal with? So the villain might be, the villain could be, okay, the villain could be China, right? And the external problem it's causing is that it's very difficult to get items into China to export right now, which is making your client feel like really helpless. They're really dependent upon China buying their particular products. And it's philosophically wrong that they should have to go through that because, you know, that villain is causing them to not be able to have their business and have success in their life. So have a think about that. Have a read through it. Like I said, you don't have to fill all this out now. This is just an introduction to the process. Now we're going to meet a guide, and that guide is what people are looking for rather than looking for a hero. They're not looking for a hero to do it all for them. They're looking for a guide to help them to solve the problem themselves. So the guide has to have a bit of empathy, right? And they also need to have some credibility. Unlike the music service Tidal. Now, Tidal is a very high fidelity music streaming, incredibly high quality of music coming through the headphones, right? The problem was it was started up by Jay-Z, who's married to Beyonce. And he went to that with a platform of saying, this is the platform that's going to respect the music again. It's going to pay the artists what they're due instead of like the really poor lot that they're getting from Apple Music and from, you know, services like Spotify. And it's where the artist has control of the process. Now, the unfortunate part about that is it's very hard to look at someone who's a, you know, many times multi-millionaire over and see them as being a victim of a process. Oh, the poor Jay-Z and his millions in his dungeon where he can roll around on all those gold coins. He wants to be respected again. He wants to get paid what he's due. He wants to have control of the process. My heart bleeds for him. What they could have done instead is concentrate in on what the actual consumer sees as a benefit. There's no benefit to the consumer for respecting music. There's no benefit to the consumer for the artist being paid what they're due or for the artist having any control of the process. But there's benefit to the consumer if there's exclusive releases released through that particular platform, and if the audio quality is actually better than what they're going to get on Spotify and other services. So it's stepping out of your shoes and stepping into the shoes of your customer. Empathy is just simply asking how you can help your client win the day. How are you going to be the person that helps them win? So let's look at an example, a cafe, a local cafe. They might have statements such as, you're supporting a local business when you deal with us. We love what we do. We even roast our own coffee. Now, in all those three cases, they are not really benefits. They're just features. So you're supporting a local business. Whoop-de-doo. We love what we do. Whoop-de-doo. We roast our own coffee. Does that make much of a difference? But the benefits for a local owned cafe and a local cafe in a local area is that it's close to home, if that's where you live. There's easy parking, which makes life so much easier. The meals you know and love, so you don't get to that menu and you just go, I don't know what any of this food is because it's written in other languages and it really sounds pretentious. Or it could be a benefit such as where you can actually hear the conversation. You know, cafes are notoriously noisy places. One of the top cafes where I live in Darwin is I won't name it, but it's so damn noisy. The food is amazing. The coffee's great. The people are friendly, but it's so damn noisy you can't have a conversation in there with your friends. So I avoid going there. I miss out on the good food simply because it's such a noisy place. They like to talk about being a local business. They like to talk about having an amazing menu. They like to talk about all their benefits, but they don't actually address what the things are that people are looking for. So when we look at all that, where you can actually hear the conversation, that's stepping into the customer's mind. Let's look at a mechanic. Your one-stop repair shop, family owned over 3 generations, a 21-point checklist. Well, that's already trumped if someone's got a 22-point checklist, isn't it? Or owned for over 4 generations. These are things that nobody cares about except for the people who own the businesses themselves. But the customer cares about things like whether it's a same-day service. They're going to get their car back at the end of the day. They're going to care if they get picked up and dropped off. That's important to them. Or if there's a loan car available for them to use during the day, great. That's massively important to them. Where you can at least grab a coffee while you wait if it's just a very short service. It means, yeah, I can actually relax a bit, read a bit, have a coffee. These are all benefits. But the feature of one-stop repair shop doesn't mean anything to anyone. It's just such a non-statement. Family owned for 3 generations. Nobody cares as long as the job gets done. 21-point checklist doesn't make me feel particularly great. But at the same time, we've also got to have authority. So we can have all the empathy in the world, but people have to be able to trust us in order to, have that moment of us where they experience that feeling of being catered for and having some empathy from us as business owners. Why should I trust you to deliver is the question that's being unspoken in a customer's mind. Let's go back to our local cafe. Now, these may sound like they're features, But these are a little bit different. Once you've already done the stuff that it takes to make sure the customer knows that you want to serve them and you want to solve their problems, now you can add in the things that help them to trust you to do those things. So if you're a Gold Plate Award winner, that's great. If you're a COVID safe accreditation venue, even better. Member of the local Australian Hotels Association branch, fantastic. 5 stars on TripAdvisor, even better. These things all allow you to feel like you are somehow got some credibility there. Now, that only comes after you've expressed the empathy, that you've actually gone out to market with things that actually help out that customer and help them to win the day, or to have some kind of experience that they're looking for. Then you know enough about them to service that and give them that solution that they're looking for. Then you can go, well, I and 15 other places actually do solve that for you. Here's the reasons why you should trust me. The same with our mechanic. They only use Valvoline oils. Now, if you grew up like I did, having to be forced to listen to things like John Law's ads like Valvoline, you know what I mean, and Oils Ain't Oils from Castrol GTX, you know, so brands when it comes to oils are quite important to people. So having Valvoline oils may speak some credibility into that particular mechanic. Being approved by the Royal Automobile Clubs and the AANTs and the RACQs of the world, those things are all very important as well, because they add some degree of credibility. It means that to be approved by those automobile associations, they have to be not dodgy, right? Because you can't really continue to have that approval and that seal of approval if you're dodgy. Oh, you might be a Chamber of Commerce member. That might be important where you're from, that a Chamber of Commerce will come with a certain code of ethics or some sort of, you know, implied protection of the consumer. So in this step, we want to look at when the customer actually comes to you, what is some things that you could say that make it sound like you know what the customer wants and you know how to solve their problem. So I'm not saying like you literally make a statement such as, oh, I can help you because I understand who you are. It's more about saying, I can solve your problems, and this is how I can solve your problems: by having easy parking, by having a pickup and drop off service, by having having that thing that helps you to understand, helps them to know that you understand who they are and what they want and how they need to be helped. And then you back that up with your authority statements. So think about things that demonstrate your competence. So things like, there's a reason why, for instance, I open up in these sessions with descriptions of where I've been educated and the badges and the associations I have, is because it lets you know that I have to do certain things to get there, and I can't do those by being dodgy. Okay, so I can't, do a 4-year uni degree and then a 2-year master's after that just by being dodgy. I can't just go and get all these certifications and TAFE by pretending to finish them. There's things you don't get unless you go through the process of getting them. So what is yours? Are they memberships of organizations? Are they certifications you've had to do what you're doing? They're things that allow you to say, not only do I understand you, but I can be trusted to deliver that for you as well. So if you're following along with mystorybrand.com, whack it in there, what you think that empathy is and what your authority is, and we'll continue on. Might just have a quick water break. Let me just have a quick drink of water. All right, that's a lot of talking. We're moving at a blistering pace here tonight. So now we're going to look at the point where you, the guide in their story, gives them a plan to move forward with, because customers trust a guide who has a plan for them. What you're essentially wanting to do is take a customer from one side of the transformation to another, from what they want and connecting that to where they are now. You need a plan to get them there. And often that plan comes in 3 or 4 steps. So we can have coaches, for instance, if you're in that sort of coaching or personal services. What are the basic steps you take a client through? Is it a weekly or monthly service? How is your success measured? How do people know that you're actually doing what you're meant to do? And what kind of accountability or guarantees or warranties are in place for what you do? Or it could be just as simple as, what are the 3 or 4 steps that you have to go through to engage that work with me? Now, you'll notice way back when I was talking about the whole BrandScript process, and it was 3 boxes, 1, 2, and 3. That's exactly what I was doing here. I was saying to you that this StoryBrand process is a process, and it goes through step one. You become familiar with and you do the StoryBrand thing at mystorybrand.com. Secondly, you then do a session with someone who helps you to unwrap what that brand messaging may be. And then step three, now you go down the success path of taking that message and putting it into your marketing, putting it into your website, maybe even rewriting the content in your website to fit that message. That's a process. So that's what I do as part of StoryBrand. If you're a catering company, yours could be easily just, how do they engage you? I often tell the story that when I first ordered catering for an event, I had no idea how catering worked. I had no idea whether you could just call up a local cafe and say, hey, do you want to supply me with some finger food? How do you work with catering companies? How do you choose food, or do they have a set menu? Do you have to pick up the food? Do they drop it off? How do you arrange collect? I'd never done anything like this before. I did not know how to do this. And going around the various websites of companies in Darwin who do catering, not one of them gives me any idea of how catering actually works. They just say that we're catering, and they make this assumption that you magically will know how catering works. I didn't know how catering worked. So I might be dumb, but I'd never known that. So when I did find that out, I felt really stupid, but actually it gave that particular catering company this idea. And I went, holy crap, we really didn't really think about this, did we? We just assumed that everyone knows how to use this because we do it every day. There's the trap. You do it every day. You understand the process. Doesn't mean that the people out there do. So if you're explaining in your steps of how do you engage a caterer, and then it could be step one, give us a call and discuss what your requirements are. Step two, we'll send you a menu so you can choose the food within your budget. Step three, let us know if you'd like to pick it up or have us drop it off. Step four, once it's over, you get to bring back the stuff to us, or we'll come and pick it up from you. Simple. That would made my life so much easier. If the caterer had that on their website, I would have gone, yep, I don't feel stupid now, so I'm going to know exactly how this thing works. For an accountant, it could be simple as answering the questions of what you do and don't do. So you might actually need a bookkeeper instead of an accountant, or understanding what do they need me to do, or how do I know if they're doing anything at all? I could do that with my accountant. I don't think my accountant does anything. I just don't see any value in what they do, because they just do this once a year thing, but they seem to charge me a subscription for that. So I'm looking at my accountant and going, are you doing anything during the rest of the year? Because I'm paying you a lot of money during the whole year to do this thing. But I've got a bookkeeper who does do a lot for me every month. And so I know that I can go back to him and say, you know what? I can count and see what you do. So in this case, it might be as an accountant saying, decide whether you need an accountant or a bookkeeper at step one, and actually link through to how to tell what they need, what the differences are and what they might need. Step two, book a time in with us or a discovery call so we can discuss what it exactly you need, and we can help you make that happen. Step three, we take over your accounts and your zero accounts, your MyOb account, whatever it is, and we begin our work. Step four, we send you a monthly report so you know exactly where things are and what we've been doing. That makes sense. It makes me feel like an approach an accountant and not feel like an absolute idiot when I do. Magical, huh? Then you can give your plan a name. It could be a more meaningful life in just 4 steps, a safer car in just 4 hours, a perfectly catered event in just 3 steps, or a brand new website delivered in just 4 steps. That sort of thing helps people to understand and have an expectation that's within reality of what it takes to do these things. It's not just a matter of sending someone an email and saying, I want a website. And then they go, okay, here's your website. It's not McDonald's like that, right? There's a process you go through. So explaining what that process is gives someone a real picture of what it's going to take to get from that confused and hesitant place to that transformed into capable and confident place we were talking about before. That's in my case, as someone who does those kind of things. You'll uncover what yours is. So what I want you to do in the mystorybrand.com process, or even if you're just writing this down in notes, or if you're going to do it later on, that's fine too. What are the 3 or 4 steps that your customers take that leads them to their transformation, or leads them to the point where they have that happiness with them? So there are 3 or 4 things they do that engage you as their guide, or engage you as their service provider. And add in there too, if there's any sort of agreements you can make in there. So there could be things like, 90 days to a healthier you or your money back. Or it could be something like the agreements could be so simple as, if you're not happy with us after 30 days, that's all right. You can terminate the contract and we won't charge you anymore. Just little agreements like that help people to feel a bit safer dealing with you. So I can say, for instance, when I start to deliver the first step of a website development project, where I haven't really engaged my workers too much, all I've done is just given them a wireframe of what I want to deliver. Then they've got the opportunity to go, I know it's accepted your quote, but I'm really not happy with that. I want to go somewhere else. I can actually drop them off then and go, yep, that's okay. I understand completely. And then they can go elsewhere. It hasn't cost me a whole lot of time and effort. It's just been a little bit of an introduction so that I can actually work out whether I want to work with them and try and save that, or whether I just want to let them go. And likewise, lets the customer have that opportunity. So first up, the 3 or 4 steps it takes to engage with you or to go through the process with you. And then those little agreements, those little guarantees or warranties or anything like that that you may have that will help someone feel safer with dealing with you. Next stage, you the client, or you the guide, you're going to set people into action. Principle 5 is that customers do not take action unless they're challenged to do so. We call this the call to action. Think about the movie Rain Man if you ever saw it. Tom Cruise's character would never have picked up Dustin Hoffman's character, who was his brother, if he didn't get the call that their father had died. His father had looked after Dustin Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman's character was very highly autistic, and therefore, was in a position where it was thought that he couldn't care for himself. Tom Cruise didn't really want anything to do with it, but when the father died, there was no one else to take care of him, so he had to go and take care of him himself. He wouldn't have done it unless there was that call to action that your father has died, you have to come and pick up your brother. Likewise, then, one of the funniest movies, I've loved this movie, Legally Blonde. Elle Woods wouldn't have applied to Harvard to go and learn how to be a hotshot lawyer if her boyfriend hadn't have dumped her first. Her call to action was her boyfriend dumping her because he thought she was too dumb and he wanted a more serious girlfriend to go through life with. Now he was going to be a big-time college man. Calls to action can be things like call now, book now, until sold out, limited time only, download menu, anything that actually prompts someone to take some kind of action when it's got to do with your business. So one of the things you need to get over is a little bit of what is called imposter syndrome. And I'll actually have to do a webinar of this sort of late in June, I think, because it's such a massive issue that people go through that they don't realize it's holding them back from any kind of success in life. Your customer won't buy from you until you ask them to. If you don't believe in what you're selling, if you don't believe in what you're selling, then there's no reason for them to believe in it. If you don't believe in it, they're going to sense that. And if you believe in it, then you have no problem with asking someone to do it. I have no problem with asking for what I ask for on a website or for coaching services or digital marketing services, because I know I'm good at it. I know I believe in it. I know I've had so much success in the past. I don't have that issue. I used to when I was fresh into it and very new in it. I had a lot of doubt. I had a lack of self-belief. But if you believe in what you're doing, and I reckon because you're on the webinar tonight, which is after hours, it's dark where I am, probably getting dark where you are, or getting close to dark where you are. I'll tell you now, if you don't believe in yourself, you wouldn't be here tonight trying to learn, or this afternoon trying to work on this. Direct calls to action can be things like you're telling someone to buy now, book now, call now, shop now, order now. Lots of now in there, right? Let's go might be another one in there too. Or read more. It could be even as simple as that, as taking someone to where they can get a little bit more information. Direct calls to action are placed on your website and on all of your different materials simply because they take someone from going, I have this problem. This person seems really good and able to do this. They've got the runs on the board to be able to do it. But if you didn't provide your phone number or your contact details, how will they deal with you? How will they be able to actually work with you? So the idea is to make sure those calls to action are really clear in there. And those calls to action are then things like, those book now, download menu and all that, but not everyone is ready necessarily to buy from you right now, particularly if you're selling services that are $5,000, $10,000, right? So what you'll have is what is called a transitional call to action. So think of it like a wedding proposal. Okay. One person meets another. Will you marry me? No, of course I won't marry you. I've just met you. Well, will you go out with me again? Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll go out with you again. Okay, will you marry me now that we've gone out a second time? Well, no, I still barely know you. Oh, okay. Will you go out with me again? Yeah, sure. You're interesting. The information you provide is helpful. I will go out with you again. And eventually after a while, you'll ask, will you marry me? And the customer will go, yes, I'll marry you now. Now, I'm using the analogy of weddings and dating with customers. It's just very, very similar. If you're selling a high ticket item, you don't necessarily, very few people walk into the first display home in a display village for houses and pick that one thing and buy a block of land and a house within that first visit. It takes time developing a relationship, developing confidence, introducing your products and services to that person in a way that makes them feel safe and makes them feel like they can trust you. Your transitional calls to action can be things like, okay, if you're not ready yet to buy, it's okay. I've got this free ebook that you can download, which gives you more of the information you need to make that better decision. Or if they're not ready to buy now, it's okay. I've got a free webinar coming up or a free workshop coming up. There's no obligation. Just come along, hear what we have to say, see if it's for you, and then you can make a decision after that if you like, or maybe even not. Having a transitional call to action isn't going necessarily buy now, book now, do this now. It could be saying, download this, read this, send us your email address, and we'll send you through some more information. Those could be your transitional calls to action, the things that get people a little bit more familiar with you, a little bit further down that track from not being aware of you at all to finally buying something from you. Because most of these journeys for particular high ticket items, even for software that cost me like $100, which is not a high ticket item, that's just half of the course really, I still have to often go through a period where I need to be courted by that software company to actually go and invest with their particular software. So that could be seeing an ad that says, hey, this software is great, come and get it now. And I go, yeah, not really get it now, but they'll say, oh, look, give us your email address and we'll send you through this these action plans and ways that you can apply what we do to your business. And okay, cool, I'll have a read of that. What it does, it puts me into a sales funnel. They send me emails that follow up, and eventually I look at those emails and go, you know what, actually, I really do need this software. I'm going to buy it. That's what a sales funnel is, and those transitional calls to action, the little things along the way that you drop in that make it easier for someone to feel that they can trust you and work with you. Now, we're going to pass, sorry, I just skipped over the fact that you can write in what your direct calls to action are. So think about your website, think about your social media, think about the way people engage you. What is the big step they need to take to engage with you? And if they're not ready to do that yet, what are the little things they can do that you can offer them that allow them to get a little bit closer? Is it ebooks? Is it emails? Is it a newsletter? Is it a sample pack? Whatever it is, put those in there as transitional calls to action. Now we move on to the part where we want to take someone from being completely unsure and hesitant and confused and all those things, and to that point where they've got success. But the important thing is that we're not just looking for success, we're also looking to avoid failure. And in fact, that avoiding a failure is a greater motivator than the success itself. Think about $100, right? You find $100 on the street, you pick it up, you look at it and go, wow, I can do some great things. You go off and blow it on a big lunch with your friends, and $100 is gone and forgotten about the next day, right? But then think about you losing that $100, where you have pulled out some keys from your pocket and there was a $100 note in there. It's flown off with the breeze. You didn't even know it did until you got to the place you were going to spend that 100, and then you go and, oh no, I've lost that $100, and you will stew on that. You will just be so obsessive about that. You stupid guy, why did you lose that? Why didn't you put it in your wallet? Why didn't you just not even take it out of your hand? Just hold on to it. The joy of winning that $100 for no reason at all is much more short-lived than the bashing you're going to do to yourself over losing that $100 when you lost it. We are motivated more by the fear of loss than by the joy of gain. It's a survival instinct that comes from us evolutionarily. So this is then put into a marketing term in such a way that you look at, well, we're all vulnerable to some sort of threat. We should take action to avoid that threat. Here's how to avoid that threat, and take action now to avoid the threat. This threat circle is the key to a lot of advertising statements, particularly for things like insurance is all about this. Pest control services are all about this. You're vulnerable to a threat. Now you should take action to avoid this threat. Here's how you do it. Now here's the step to take to do it. It's a common ad technique, but it's really powerful because it helps us to offset that fear of loss that we have, losing our house to termites, or losing our belongings in a cyclone, or anything like that. Let's see how this plays out with pest control, termites, for instance. Termites can damage your home, costing you tens of thousands of dollars. You are vulnerable to a threat. You can do something about it and save your home. There is something you can do about that threat. Start with a termite check to make sure you're okay and so you know you're safe. We have the solution to that threat. Call today to book your inspection. Here's how you offset that threat. Here's what you do. Every one of those 4 steps are on that circle. We go back that circle. You're vulnerable. You should take action. Here's how to avoid that threat. Now take the action. We do the same here. You are vulnerable, can damage your home. You should take action. You can do something about it and save your home. Here's what you do in order to take that action. Here's how you do it. Now go and do it. That sort of writing really helps people to understand what they're kind of missing out. That fear of missing out, that fear of loss can be catered to in a way that's, it may seem like it's kind of manipulative, and it gets it in a way it kind of is, but all sort of marketing is. You're coming to people with something they don't have now, or they don't know that they want. You introduce them to it, and then at some point they may want that, and they'll come to you to provide that. So it's just the same with these kind of ads, or these kinds of ways of writing copy. This kind of writing for copy will transform what you'll look at with every page on your website. When you write from that moment of threat, it could be solar installation. If you're doing a solar installation business, it could be that the threat is that power prices are going up every year and getting more and more expensive. You can do something about those power prices. Start with an assessment by us to show you how much you can save by installing solar panels. Call today and book your assessment. It's the same kind of thing. You'll see this repeated again and again in ads all over the place. So I want you to, when you get a chance, as part of your mystorybrand.com thing, is list down the negative consequences that your customers will experience if they don't use your product or service. Now, I don't want you to use really airy-fairy stuff like, oh, they won't experience happiness unless they use my service or buy my candles. That sort of thing is just too vague. Be really specific. What are the specific negative things that happen to someone if they don't use your product or service? If they don't go through your coaching service, then the negative consequence is that they won't get a better life. If they don't go and buy your, let's just say your water saver widget that's going to help them save a lot of water in their house, they're going to end up spending too much in their water rates. So what are the actual real world consequences that someone will go through if they don't buy your thing? There's got to be something in there. So as you set up your business to set up what you do, you will have an idea of what it is, the problem you're trying to solve, and understanding that if people don't do this thing, they won't get this result. What's that lack of result? Put that down in your list. But then also, what are the positive changes your customers will experience if they use your particular product or service? So we've looked at what the negative consequences are. What are the positive consequences? So if there's things you go, if you use my skincare regime, your skin will look younger and more supple. If you use my particular scented candles, you will have a more calm house that smells amazing. If you use my water purification product, you'll be healthier because your water won't contain nasty pathogens. Fantastic. What are the positive changes? Or even get really specific. What is the feeling that they'll have? What is the feeling that someone will have as a consequence of buying your product or using your service? Don't use really nebulous terms like they'll feel successful, they'll feel empowered. Get real. Understand what the real feeling. Will they feel thrilled, happy? They'll wake up with energy in the morning. That energy will last them all day. That sounds much nicer than saying, oh, you're going to feel empowered. Try and avoid those kind of buzzwords like that are kind of used in personal development stuff these days, and go for the actual feeling that someone will have. Excitement. You'll feel thrilled. You'll feel energetic rather than you'll feel empowered. You can tell I really don't like corporate buzzwords. The ultimate thing is that you want to be transforming your customer from something to something, from a caterpillar to a butterfly, from confused to competent, from messy to tidy. If you're an organizer, that could be really important. From someone who's messy and chaotic in life to someone who's organized and knows where things are. That's a great thing for someone who's doing personal organizing. Or if it could be like a childcare service, you can go from unsure of what your kids are up to confident in knowing your kids are well nurtured and cared for. Great. That's the kind of transformation you have. Now, as part of this program, what you do is that once you've got all that stuff in place and you put it all into your StoryBrand thing, you normally would then engage with a StoryBrand certified professional to go through that process. In your case, you can do that through an ASBAS Digital Solution consultation. So the one-to-one thing that you can either, if you've never done a one-to-one through ASBAS before, you can do that via businessstation.com.au, and you can book one of those with myself or someone else who happens to be familiar with what StoryBrand is. I'm not 100% sure of someone else who does StoryBrand on ASBAS, because I know I kind of introduced it to the program, but feel free to book me. I just might not be available to about June. I'm a bit booked out at the moment, but you can do that. And that's the next step, or just go and do it through mystorybrand.com. You can reach out to a certified professional, although it's probably going to cost you a couple of $1,000s, so probably don't do that. Or you can go through and buy the book and do a self-assessment and work that out for yourself of how to pull out that. Now, people like me are trained to be able to pull those messages out from what you've done in your assessment. So this particular introduction was really all about you defining what all those different things are. The next step is being able to take all that and pull a message out of there, a core message and a set of little messages that are all about your business. How about you're going to go from what you want to do to doing what your customers need you to do, taking your customers on a journey from being this to now being this. That's what's going to help them to feel great about your business. You can reach out to me through dante@treaty.com.au if you've got some questions about that process at all. I would really love to hear from you, or just stalk me on all the social media. I don't really mind, especially LinkedIn is a great place for me to be. I thank you so much for taking some time out this afternoon or this evening. It's very dark where I am in Townsville at the moment. So thank you for joining me. Again, feel free to book me through ASBAS Digital Solutions, or just send me an email and I can sort of point you in the right directions about what to do next with the StoryBrand framework. Thank you, and I hope you have an amazing evening.